Got it.
Okay. Uh, welcome. Here we got Irina joined us. Welcome. We're just going live.
Happy
Okay.
holidays.
Yeah. We're just going live. I think the video is streaming properly. Sorry about the craziness here. This is our biweekly user group meeting, and today we're talking about visual regression testing with Diffy. Yuri is here from Diffy.com, is it, or Diffy.website? What's your main URL?
It is Diffy, that website.
Diffy.website, okay. And we're talking about using Diffy for backdrop infrastructure in any way possible. And we're going to demonstrate first a little bit about Diffy and then maybe talk about from an infrastructure issue. Anyway, so it's just the four of us. Let's go ahead and introduce us. My name is Tim Erickson. I'm St. Paul Tim in Deerwood, Minnesota today. Nate, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Nate Lampton. I'm Quick Sketch on the internet. I'm the core committer and technical lead for Backdrop, and I'm calling in from Oakland, California.
Yuri? Well, actually,
Yeah,
let's have Irina go. Irina, or Yuri, you go last. It's your guess.
Hi, Yuri, why don't you go first and then I'll go last, and I will, because I want to end with holiday greetings.
Okay.
Sure. My name is Yuri Gerasimov. I'm a founder of Diffy, and I'm calling from Vancouver, Canada.
Okay. Irina?
And how is weather in Vancouver?
Beautiful. Raining as usual.
My name is Irina Zaks. I am web developer. I worked with various CMSs. I'm very happy to see Nate and Yuri here in the community meeting team. You're here always leading. Last couple of weeks were very exciting for Backdrop. One very significant achievement is that the topic of improving velocity for code contributions has a benchmark today with PR open on November 24 and closed today within 2 weeks. This is a very significant mark and deserves separate conversation. And I'm very happy to see Yuri here, interested in, giving his beautiful Diffy testing tool to Backdrop community. And I want to say happy holiday greetings. Wishing everyone peace, and off to technical discussion.
Very good. Well, I didn't realize our issue had been resolved today, Irina. Thanks for pointing that out. So we, a quick summary, Yuri came to us with this offer to help with Diffy in our infrastructure. We did have our first meeting last week. We talked about using that as a start on backdrop.org is a good place to start testing it and then explore if there are other and how else we might use it. So in the interim, we set up an account and we went ahead and connected Diffy or backdropcms.org to Diffy. Why don't should I start out and just show what I did, Yuri, and then you can talk more about the service, or do you think it would be better for you to introduce it? You're muted.
That will be better. Sure, go ahead and you can share your screen and show how you set things up, and I can give any comments if needed.
Okay, just share screen. There we go. Yeah, feel free to jump in at all. So these trying to remember quickly, the startup process, first of all, Diffy or Yuri, as you suggested, was very easy. So, I mean, I believe really not much more than entering like the URLs of the project. And then so when we went ahead and did the pages that we're comparing, I didn't pick these out, so it must have automatically found 37 pages that it thought were on its own, right?
That's correct. So
Yeah.
the way we usually do that, we scan the homepage of the project for all internal links.
Right.
You can control the links that you're covering with testing in the project settings. If you go to the project settings link at the right top corner, under the pages URLs, you will see the complete list.
Yeah. Sure. So we could easily create our own. Yeah, we can add URLs down here and pick which ones. So I was anticipating doing that, but Diffy fortunately gave us a good selection. And, as I browsed through this, most of what some of these I don't think are necessary, but a lot of the, any of the ones that I think would be important certainly got pulled in here. So Diffy automatically, basically, I just entered the site we wanted to use, and we did have to enter the environment. So we're using 2 environments. We do have a like HT password protection for our beta site. So you need a password, and which we're not worried about this being exposed. I suppose I shouldn't have showed that. It's not really that important. The main thing is to prevent it from getting into. It's just a copy of our live site. So we just want to prevent that from getting indexed by search engines. So, but anyways, Diffy accounts for that, lets you enter the password so we can get past that. I don't really think I had to do anything else. So then we ran our first, and basically, well, what Diffy is doing is we use our live site as the snapshot, the authentic version, and then we do a comparison with the beta site, and Diffy then shows us all the pages where there are changes. Now, these are changes just because for the most part, we haven't recently synced our beta site with the live site. So there's been some changes that we've implemented that we didn't get on the beta site. Our workflow is not such that everything goes through the beta site like it should. It's our beta site, we should say, is relatively new. In the past, we would test PRs locally and then push them directly to the live site. So this is implementing Diffy might be helping us sort of get into a workflow. Anyway, so there's a lot of red here, and a lot of that just has to do with either files that haven't been synced or some recent changes. But anyways, so I mean, that's really all there was to it. You should tell us more, and either Yuri, if you want me to keep driving and you just to talk, you can tell me where to go, or we could switch if you want to share your screen. What would you like to do?
Yeah, I can share my screen. Probably
okay,
I will
I'll stop sharing.
A few more details. So I will share the whole screen. And hold on.
Okay,
here it is.
There we go.
So there are a few things that I would like to mention. That first of all, if you have multiple environments, you can also test them. This is the most basic case where we have staging environment and production, and we just compare them. But if you're using some pull requests environments, you can test them as well. And that can be as easy as just adding a custom URL, whatever way you build it. And we also have a lot of automation tools, but this is probably for later. We have integrations with multiple CI systems. Regarding the comparisons, what I wanted to mention is that in Diffy, once you have it, you can mark individual changes or individual pages, whether they have bugs or not. In this case, because of the content synchronization, we just marked all of them as okay. But what you also can do, and what I would definitely encourage you doing, is that once you have comparison, just go through it and mark the issues that are bugs as bugs. So we can do something like this, because what we can have in the end is that once everything is reviewed, you can see that the report will be much cleaner. It will only show the pages that had some issues that were marked. So the workflow could be, you do the release to staging environment, someone goes through the visual changes, mark whatever is bug as a bug, and then you can share this page as a report with your development team. For example, we can create a GitHub issue and then let everyone to see where the issues are and potentially work on the bug fixes. And we also have a shareable link that can be accessed by anyone. So you don't really need to have an account in Diffy in order to see the report. So I think for the backdrop.org, what we could do right now with the workflow that we have is that someone does the deployment to beta environment, run the testing, mark the bugs, and then if there are any issues, maybe file an issue in GitHub, and then somebody picks it up and work on it. But in this way, not everyone needs to have an account, but everyone is aware about the issues that were found.
Okay.
So right now it's more, in order to start using the tool effectively, we need to find a way how to sync the database and images from production to your beta environment.
Yeah.
So maybe we can have a discussion around that. Because otherwise we always will be having some issues there.
No, clearly. I mean, part of the problem is that, as I said, Yuri, we're just not really pushing changes there for testing yet. So as soon as we go to the trouble of pushing a change there for testing, we would also, sync it first. And so that problem would sort of get resolved just by the fact that we're using it, and we haven't really been using the beta site the way we should be or could be. So. So I think that'll get naturally resolved, and it's been on my agenda all week to try and get that up to synced. And we've only got a couple of developers that have really been pushing changes, and there's a few more of us that need to get involved in that, including myself. Okay, so here, let's go back. I'm going to share my screen again because there's, I'm just looking at the. First of all, we didn't mention this, but we should. I like this, the ability to sort of see what's going on, and we can see here that the kinds of changes that have been made since the missing image is really just a syncing problem. But we can also see that there were changes made to the content in this right column and what they are. That's pretty nice. Can you tell us anything more about the screen size? Does it have to take new images for these different screen sizes, or did it take those all at once? Seems like it took
yes. That's right. We take screenshots for each of the breakpoints, and these are images. So we spin up the browser that will open the website in the breakpoint specified and take the screenshot, and you can control the list of the breakpoints in your project.
Okay,
so these are like kind of
like
default.
Is that in the project settings? Yeah, here we go.
Under the breakpoints, that's right. And this is where you can use one of these, or you can add a custom ones as well.
Right. And you were pointing out, so we could. These were the diffs that we've run already. And if I wanted to run another one, okay. So I can pick, oh, wait. No, this is, okay, that's not. So if I create a snapshot, I see, then I pick. So I can pick which environment I want to create the new snapshot from, and I would create a new snapshot, and then I would go over here and create a diff between any two existing snapshots. So the one I just took today, then I could pick any previous one to do the diff against.
That's correct.
Okay. And you were saying, so of course you could, when you're creating this, you could do I understand that you have the ability to automatically trigger, but what you were saying earlier is we could just manually create a pull request based diff and do a snapshot if we didn't have the automation set up, or why don't you talk just a little bit about the kinds of automations that we in theory can do in terms of triggering automatic diffs?
Sure. So yes, you can specify the URL of the environment when you're creating a snapshot. But if you have already an automation of building environments per pull request, for example, with a tugboat or Pantheon multi-dev, or there are multiple systems, and I will not assume which one you're using. You could have an automation that will trigger the visual regression testing right after the environment is ready. And for example, you could do something like, if you get the environment, let's say you use the database from the beta website, and then once you created the environment for your pull request, you can take the fresh screenshots from your environment and from beta site and compare them. So you could do these automations. And if you're using GitHub, and you do, from what I see, then you can post results back into the pull request as the GitHub check. So that is also possible, and we have multiple projects that run exactly this idea.
Okay. I'm just browsing through. Are there any other sort of settings or configuration? I mean, I think what is the monitoring? Oh, this would be regular automatic.
Yeah, monitoring is used widely in the cases when you don't have multiple environments. Right. So let's say you have just production and you deploy changes to production regularly, or you like to have just regular monitoring every day or on the weekly schedule, and it will create fresh snapshot and compare it with the previous snapshot. And this way you can see the reports like, okay, what changed in the last week, this type of thing.
Right.
It's pretty widely used when there are some automated updates. For example, on the WordPress websites, they have this practice of rolling out updates automatically, and they just want to make sure that nothing got broken. But I've seen monitoring used on Drupal websites as well, especially when there are a lot of editors. So it's also less development tool, but also just checking the editorial work as well.
Yes, no, I'm having an aha moment. I've been thinking about this for a client of mine, and this use, because breaks, sort of visual regressions can happen not just from the development tests, but also from editing tests. And there are things that sort of the site editor can do that might screw up things that they didn't realize, especially some of our more advanced editors that have, that do some more complicated things. I can think of something that just happened this week on one of our sites that could have been caught by this kind of monitoring. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Tim, like there are modules that can do a lot of great stuff, but also do a lot of harm, like CSS injection, right? That's right. Or JavaScript injection. They can introduce nice styles to one page, but break the other page, and you will not even know about that because you don't look at the website all the time. There are a lot of settings under Advanced tab, and those are all related to more like working with false positives, because you can mask remove elements, you can perform different actions like scrolling and delay. One of the nicer things is the custom JavaScript. That's where you can add a snippet of JavaScript and it will be triggered right before we take the screenshot. And this can be used for things like we want to test the drop-down menu. We want to take a screenshot of the menu being expanded. So that's where we could use JavaScript. And on your website, let me see if you have that. Yeah, you do. For example, about drop-down, we can hover on it and expand it and take the screenshot of the page with this menu item expanded. So things like that can be accomplished with JavaScript. Yeah, and and there are a lot of different other settings. One of the bigger ones is that we can take screenshots as the logged in user. So for the backdrop, itself, like the distribution or the project, we can take screenshots of your admin pages. In this way, if anything changes there, you will be notified as well.
Okay. Would I do that through just through that username and password, probably the same way I did the beta site?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
If you're using just standard Drupal form, we already know how to handle it,
Okay.
but it can support multiple variations. You will only need to provide CSS selectors for the name and password fields and the button to submit. Compare environments is more like a shortcut.
Right.
It will take, for example, if you select production versus staging, it will take fresh screenshots from one and the other environments and compare them.
Which one does it take the fresh?
It will
Right.
take from both environments fresh screenshots and compare them right away. You can do that manually by clicking, creating a snapshot of one environment, another one environment, and then comparing them manually. But this is just a shortcut to make your life a bit easier.
Yeah, I see it. So this creates two snapshots right now and automatically does the comparison versus creating a new snapshot and comparing it against an existing one or something like that.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I have a pretty good idea of how this works at that level. And I mean, I see the value to this in terms of, I mean, to be honest, in our existing workflow, that whole thing about just checking production against an older version of production is probably would be helpful, because as I said before, we haven't run everything through the beta site. Now, if we start using the beta site more, obviously that will be really helpful. I'm having a little harder time envisioning all of this in our regular, like our development workflow, because I think really not a lot of issue. I mean, a lot of issues don't affect the front end at all. And you know, we talked about this a lot last week, that in terms of like automatically triggering snapshots. I mean, to me, like for client work, I can see while we're developing themes, you know, that is very important when we're making modifications. And for a lot of my client projects, you know, a lot of the changes we make have substantial visual effects on the site. It seems to me like in core, that's less of an issue. But Nate is here, and did anybody else join us? Not yet. I don't know, Nate, have you had any other thoughts about this in terms of core development?
No, I still haven't really thought of a great use case, I don't think, for core development. I'll reiterate what I said last time we met, which is I think that there's great value in contrib development for themes, especially. But I don't think that putting it on core would provide a huge amount of value. I think it would be useful if we could have this tool available to our core reviewers in the event that there was a pull request that needed some regression testing on it. But like, you know, 19 out of 20 or more pull requests aren't relevant to the front end for Backdrop. And so I just don't think that having a per pull request thing all the time is going to be that useful for core development.
No, but okay, but that seems really relevant what you just said, Nate, which is anytime that, I mean, it's not that hard to run a test, and if we're doing a test that we know could have front end implications, we have a sandbox, right, in GitHub, and just that ability to go, it would just give an extra level of security, right, to be able to like run, you know, if any of the certainly of the core maintain, you know, as a core maintainer, I would think that could give you a little extra assurances if you could just you know, maybe we're not doing it every time during development, but before committing something.
Yeah, and something we have, but we've never used before, I don't think, is that in the core development process, we do have per pull request sandboxes already, but we also have the base preview that Tugboat provides us. So that provides us something to compare against. And I think the base preview refreshes on a nightly basis. So that would be our, the thing to compare against. So we already have the two environments necessary to make it work.
Yeah, so it would just be a chance if you're doing anything that touches on some CSS or anything that you think might affect the front end to just sort of manually trigger. You could, in like a minute or two, do a quick diff and just make sure we're not missing anything. I mean, it isn't like we've had, I don't know of any examples where we've had, I mean, I shouldn't say that. We definitely have had examples where we've had some of the visual regressions that usually get caught fairly quickly. They get committed. I'm thinking around the cards. I feel like there were some things that, although they were pretty obscure things, but still, yeah, I can see the value of that. I think we should just sort of have that, set that up. I mean, so setting it up for core development then would really just mean setting this. I was unaware of this sort of nightly snapshot that you're saying. But if we set that as the base and then we just made sure that some of our more active developers are aware of this, we could experiment a bit with just trying selected manual snapshots during development when it seems necessary or when it seems helpful.
Yeah, and how we initiate that process, I think, is going to be the question. Like, how do we make it clear that this option is even available? How do we get the link to the comparison page? Is that something that's like, people would request, hey, can somebody run this? And then someone that has access just goes and sets it up for them and then creates a link? Or if we could somehow make that a little smoother,
Let's get Yuri involved in here. So what we're describing right now is there's any of, I don't know, anywhere from 5 to 20 people that periodically are active in the issue queue, and on a regular basis, more people come in and out. And Robert joined us. Real quickly, Robert, we're just talking about using Diffy visual regression testing. We talked a little bit about using it in backdropcms.org, but we're talking about using it in core now. And one of our thoughts in terms of core is that it lets you just specify 2 environments, and it does, it creates this kind of a diff. I'll show you the example. Maybe you've seen this kind of stuff before, maybe not, but it's basically this is a snapshot of the beta backdropcms.org beta version versus the live site, and we can see there's a number of changes we've made to production that haven't been synced to beta. So we're seeing a lot of red here, right? Normally, we'd expect to see very few things, if anything, here. But Diffy gives us the ability to just compare any 2 environments, and since we have for pull requests, we could automate Diffy as part of the test process, but that seems like it would be a huge drain when very seldom is it relevant to core pull requests, right? But manually, you can run a test against 2 environments, and in cases where we're even on this help text for a PR that we just committed this morning, that had some front end implications. Somebody in a couple of minutes could have run a diff to make sure there wasn't any unexpected changes on other pages. And if we had that possibility, the question then is, how do we make that possibility useful in terms of who can do it? So Yuri, if we're assuming we've got a few number of people that can actually pull the trigger and run tests, or would everybody have to have an account that would initiate a test?
Yes, you would need to have an account to start the test. What you could do, you could just register, let the people to register to the team.
Right.
And you can create a project where you will have some pages for the core testing or for the backdrop cms.org or whatever website you'd like to be tested. So people won't need to create anything from scratch. Yep. The only thing they will need is that they will need to provide the environment of the tugboat and the base environment. And it can start taking screenshots, and in 5-10 minutes, they will get the results. Okay. So there is possibility to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there could be 5 people that are almost always involved in any PR that's going to make visual changes. And if one of them, the five, I would probably be one of them, Greg, maybe Robert, Jen, if we had 4 or 5 people that knew how to run these tests, that we could either just initiate it on our own, or we, maybe we had a tag needs visual testing. And then, if tag any issue that we think could use that, then anybody, I like the idea of a tag. I know we're very conservative about adding tags, but this seems like it would be a great case, right? Where it's a special kind of testing that could be, if anybody thinks an issue could be, will you just try that for a little while? What do you think, Nick?
Question?
No, should go, Robert.
Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
And I apologize since I came in late. You may
have said all no problem.
How does one specify which pages to do the comparison of, or does it automatically crawl all of both sites to do its comparison?
Sure. So when I set this up for backdropcms.org, it automatically generated a list of 37 pages that it found. So it doesn't do like every blog post, right? But it automatically went out and it crawled these pages. We can then delete ones. So this would be sort of the default list. We can delete pages if we don't think they need to be tested, and we can manually add to this list. So it sort of gives us a default.
And did you create to compare administrative pages? Did you create an administrative user that Diffy logs in as to get access to those admin pages?
Well, we haven't done that yet, but Yuri just assured us we could do that. That this did log in, so this was able to get into the beta site, right? I gave it the username and password to get past our little external security to get to the beta site. But it could also log in and take admin screenshots, but we haven't done that yet. Oh, no, these are all public pages. I mean, I suppose that that of the visual changes that we make in core, most of them are probably admin, right? Is that maybe what you're getting at? Is that
a lot of them certainly?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the last one I looked at. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that the one that we just did today, which was primarily some text changes, that was an admin one. So we would have to set that up. So I mean, given that we wouldn't want to test every admin page, I don't think so. Doing the testing might require, well, I guess if we'd have to have a good, sensible list of default pages to test. And then if somebody wanted to add one, they could.
And is the idea then that when someone submits a PR somewhere in that chain, maybe after it's passed some of the early tags, that a person with Diffy privileges would now feed Diffy the reference core site and the tugboat image from the PR, and then say, show us the differences? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I think so. We're making this up as we go, and we really started to make this up like about the time you joined us, so we're not very deep into it. But yes, I'm imagining that maybe that during the review process, somebody tags an issue and says this could use visual regression testing, and then somebody with access would we would have a reference point for a default site, and they would have to enter the URL of the sandbox site for that URL. And for this to be useful, we'd want a pretty good set of defaults so that that's pretty much all they have to do, and then run a diff and see if anything changed other than what was expected. And I don't know that this is going to be useful. I'm just saying this would be something we could try. And if it's not useful, we could quit doing it.
So we've certainly had regression issues pop up here and there.
Mhm.
And I don't remember many of them as examples, but I'm just sort of trying to sort some of the regressions that come up happen in relatively unlikely scenarios.
Right.
This only happens to people who upgraded from a Drupal site where role names were numbers instead of IDs, and those are things that we won't catch here. Whereas something like you screwed up the text wording, help text on a page would pop right up with this. And so I'm just wondering if any of the others who have more experience, the longer period of backdrop, and remember some of these regressions, have a sense of how often of the various regressions that come up, do we think this could catch a large fraction of them, or is it fairly specialized? I mean, would it be a fairly narrow subset?
Well, we cannot guarantee anything before we started. So what I can offer from my side, if I know the URL of the base environment in Tugboat, what I could do whenever somebody creates a pull request, I can probably subscribe to that. Yeah. And I can run some testing on my own and see if that introduces any visual testing, like regressions. And if it does, I will be posting the links back to the pull request. So I can volunteer some time doing that manually for, I don't know, 20, 30 pull requests, and then see how that goes. Because once, usually like what I see with a tool like that is just nobody knows what kind of outcomes can be found, right. But once people start seeing that actual regressions are introduced and they can be caught, then the value goes up and people will start using the tool more and more. Right. So for sure, it would be nice to demonstrate capabilities and catching some regressions, if any, in order to prove the value. That's what I believe at, and that approach worked pretty well in the past. So if you can let me know what is the Tugboat base environment, I can take initiative and doing some regression on your pull requests.
Well, I think what both of you said to make sense to me. First of all, Robert, I tend to agree with you that the problem I'm having with all of this is that there have been almost no examples that I can think of that would have got caught by this regression testing. On the other hand, I think what Yuri might be saying is it's not inconceivable to me that things are slipping through, sort of small things. Yeah, that maybe we could catch, and it's also not inconceivable to me that we might just find out that it's useful in a way that we didn't anticipate it. So it was like I was thinking, the idea of automating it on every test seems kind of ridiculous to me, but the idea of just trying it selectively and seeing what happens, like I feel like not much harm can come from it. Personally, I'm interested in just learning more about the tool. So, at the very worst case scenario, we've learned more about the tool. And if it's just not proving helpful in our workflow, I don't think it's hurt anything. So I wouldn't want to put a lot of extra work on anybody. Like, that's my point. Like, if we flagged issues that needed this, then we could be selective. So we're not saying we have to do this for every issue. And I think it would be fine that even if we flagged issues, we don't necessarily need to make it a requirement, right? It could be just that we flag issues like, hey, if somebody has time, do the testing on this, but we're not going to hold up the issue. If the core committer thinks it's okay, that I don't see a reason why we would have to wait. But it could just give us some extra confidence and some experience with the tool. So that's my thought. Okay. So Yuri, yeah.
As for the backdropcms.org website, if the beta website, it will take some efforts to sync the content. Maybe what we can do instead is just to run monitoring, maybe like weekly.
Yeah.
And then to see if it catches anything just on the
Yes.
production. Because you do introduce some changes. As I understand, you do them directly on the production website. So in this way, if the coverage passes, like that's great. Otherwise, you will just see what changes you're introducing, and those could be completely expected, but it will hopefully bring some value as well.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. That first of all, I want to get the beta site synced, so I want to resolve that issue. But I think your point, Yuri, is, and I think, to be honest, I think the monitoring is where we're going to get real value from it. And basically, what that means, Robert, is if it's not clear, is that it can have a baseline snapshot of the site. And then once a day or once a week, it can take a new set of snapshots, compare if there are any differences, and alert us if there are. And I think that would occasionally somebody edit something, and that we do run into little regressions on backdropcms.org from time to time that were sort of inadvertent, and I could definitely see this being useful there. Does that make sense? And there's no cost to it because it happens automatically. We would automatically get triggered if something's changed, and we could focus on pages that we don't expect to change.
Yeah, sorry, I realized you shifted
to backdropcms.org.
Yeah, not monitoring core code
Yep.
regressions, but b.org regressions.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I feel like we've I'll stop sharing. Well, so Robert, again, just to we'll give you a really quick snapshot. So in the project on Diffy, you can create screenshots, which is basically you can pick any environment and just put in the URL and hit create, and it's going to create a set of snapshots from the environment you just created. And then you can go over here and create a diff. And when you create a diff, you can basically create a diff between any two set of screenshots. So you could have historical sets of screenshots of say, backdropcms.org, or we can have one of production and one of staging, however we want to do that. And you could do any kind of comparison you want here, and then it'll pop up. This would be sort of the manual way of doing it, but where was the monitoring again? Remind me. Oh, here it is.
Yeah, it's under the.
But we can also say we can create a baseline snapshot and say do a daily or weekly snapshot, and then just tell us how that compares to the baseline one. And those could both be on production, so that we just be alerted if something strange. I plan to set this up on one of my client sites definitely for testing, just to see, because this actually I've been looking for something like this before. So, okay, I think we have some next steps. Yuri, in terms of your offer to run I'm only balking at that because, again, I don't want to waste your time. And I think unless we do it in a way where we're flagging issues, I think most of the issues in core just it isn't relevant for. And I think we should be a little bit focused. I mean, we'd be happy to show you how we're going to do. You know, we'll need to talk a little bit more about this, but we're happy to involve you in it. I mean, you certainly can help us do it, but I don't want you to just run off and start like automatically or manually doing every pull request. That feels like a waste of time. Go ahead, Irina.
I have to, I'm sorry, I have to leave for my 1
Yeah.
o'clock, but I wanted to thank everyone. I will be reaching out. I want to write a blog post. I'm into writing in December. I think this is amazing collaboration and I'm very excited about it.
Good.
So just wishing everyone happy holiday season and talk to you all soon. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
I will need to drop off as well, Tim.
Okay.
So maybe what we can do, once you see some pull request that is worth testing, just reach out to me and I can set it up and we can go through the exercise of testing it and I can show you how it works.
Well, here's the good news, Yuri, that well, I don't know what your schedule is this month, but the timing is good for us. We have a feature freeze for our next minor release on January 1st, which means that the last 2 weeks in December are always generally pretty busy in our core issue queue. And very often there's little sort of UI issues that are getting that are making progress quickly during that time. So it's kind of a good month for us to test this out. And then you know, there can be weeks, we could go weeks without really having a UX issue that might get flagged for this. But over the next couple of weeks, I'm pretty much guaranteed that theoretically we'll have some examples. And we just have to see how it fits into our workflow and see if we can get people to thinking about it.
Okay, that's great.
Okay, thank you. Oh, let's turn on. Bye, everybody. I'm going to turn off the video.